Mimosas with Michael. Mimosas with Michael. Mimosas with Michael. Yay!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mimosas with Michael. This is your host, Michael Klom, and I'm with the special guest, Pierre Bohanna. Oh, I'm so good. And so here I am. Everybody knows I'm traveling in London for my birthday, and my trip is coming too close. So one of the last things I'm doing is so even though it's Mimosas with Michael, I'm having English tea with this gentleman here. And I'm actually going to let him introduce himself because I find what you do very fascinating because I'm a filmmaker, but you've also worked on amazing movies. So, I mean, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so it's always a slightly long story, but essentially I'm a prop maker. I make props, and we do specialised costumes for film. So what I do is productions will come to me and I'll set up a facility to do that for the film. So that's basically what we do nowadays, be it costume, specialist costume making, or special props.
Okay, and so tell the audience just a couple of cool movies you worked on, the ones that they would know.
Well, the obvious one is Harry Potter. I was very lucky. We did all the Harry Potter films.
Yeah.
So
you did all of them.
Yeah.
All 8 of them.
Yeah. We did all 8. Yeah.
And did you do Fantastical Beasts?
We did, and Beast. Yeah, that led into Beast. So.
I'm telling you right now, I saw Eddie Redmayne on the street the other day.
Oh, did you?
In front of Waldo, I promise. Because I've seen him in all of his movies, and he walked by, and I was like, "That's Eddie Redmayne."
So whenever you see someone like that, what's always the first thing that comes into your head? Do you always think, "My God"? People are always smaller. Eddie's quite good. He's very light, so he's.
Yeah, he was not very big at all.
No.
I thought he was well dressed. I mean, I'm a huge fan of him.
Yeah.
And I don't get starstruck per se, except because I'm such a huge fan of this particular film franchise. But I'm telling you, I was filming in New York. I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and Ethan Hawke walked by me. So I mean, and I work with celebrities every day, so it's not like I'm gonna freak out like I think most people would. But because I'm such a huge fan of his movies and the Fantastical Beasts from Harry Potter, I was like, holy shit, it's Eddie Redmayne. So I was a little slightly, which is obnoxious, I know.
No. It's one of the pleasures, isn't it? I suppose seeing people out of context, isn't it? You're so familiar, all of those sort of. It's such a strange job that because we're all so familiar with them.
Yeah.
In the context of how you see them, rather than the reality of what they are.
Yeah.
And so when you get to meet famous people, they're always different. They're always sometimes more, sometimes less, and it's but it's always very interesting.
Well, what I find interesting is in regards to somebody like, I mean, even with Harry Potter, like they all seem so familiar to us because we've seen them, but they're not familiar to us as like Daniel Radcliffe or Rupert. They're familiar to us as Harry Potter, Hermione, and Ron, and so forth. So then, and I don't know for you, but when I've worked with them, like they're that particular like icon that we know them as, and then you start to get to know them as people, and I think like that sort of iconic part of them fades away, and they just become like somebody a coworker / friend.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, they can't be helped, but especially very famous ones, they can't be helped but put on a pedestal. You have your expectation is different to the reality.
Yeah.
But they're all people. They're all
just people.
Exactly. They're all fallible and they have confidences in certain areas and lack of confidence in others. It's just like the usual people, isn't it? They're on this sort of funny journey. Really, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But I tell you, it's funny. I mean, one of the interesting things with Potter was watching the kids grow up, because obviously, like Daniel, by example, I remember the first time I'm meeting him was for a broom fittings. Who were going to thinking about making a broom for him, and you build a rig, and this 10-year-old boy. I mean, literally, you could. Bouncing him on your knee, but it's this little kid came in, and he always had he's always got an amazing core confidence, Daniel. Even though he's kind of got that, he's very effervescent nowadays. When he was younger, he still he was a little bit more reticent, but he had a great. He always had a good strength to him. But meeting him then and just seeing him and then watching him on this journey all the way through, and as he grows up, he's growing up with it, and all the other, the kids and the main actor, it was just fascinating. Yeah, no, it's great, and he's such a cool, cool guy now. You know.
Yeah, no, he seems like they all seem really cool, and because I work in the States, and I'd love to work on with any of them. I'd love to film here. I've been trying to make contacts here, just so I can come work with you guys. You're working on, what are you working on now? Are you allowed to say?
Yeah, I've just we've been I've ended up with two main crews basically, so we're able to do two films in parallel now. And we've been very lucky. We've been doing the recent Star Wars series, and we're doing costume. We call it costume effects. We've been doing specialist costumes for everything from Force Awakens all the way through.
Okay.
And we're just starting on episode 9 now, and so the last of the initial trilogy.
Yeah.
The final part of from post of the Last Jedi. So we're just literally just starting to start on that. It's very, very early days on that, and then
I actually know the script supervisor.
Oh,
Dawn Gillian, yeah, she's our union president.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, she connected me with a couple of people from the film school that I had talked to the other day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so when you see her, you have to tell her on my podcast.
Oh, I will do.
Yeah.
I will do.
No, she's phenomenal. I love Dawn. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and obviously, again, it's turning a bit into the Potter thing of the family crew thing. But anyway, sorry. So we're doing that, and then we're also just started on Wonder Woman, also doing some costume. We're making a couple of specialized costumes.
Oh, I love the costumes in Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And so I know you can't give anything away, but are you happy with the script of this next movie?
Of
Wonder Woman.
Yeah. You know what? I actually haven't read it only because they're still working on it, and by the nature of I can't really go into the specifics, but because of what we're doing, I don't actually need to understand the script, so it's not always a requirement. It's like actors, sometimes they give you just script pages etc for what you need to, you don't need to, and it's fine. I'll probably read it later on. Sometimes I don't always have to read the script.
No, that's true. See, I'm a script supervisor. I have not only do I have to read the script, I have to break it down. I have to know it forward and backward. So
sometimes when we're doing prop making, classically I will do. There's a couple of scripts I'm reading at the moment for jobs coming up, and you do breakdowns from it, and you need a range of questions when it's much more of a spread and a feel of stuff.
Oh, of course.
But with Wonder Woman, we've got like 2 or 3 very specific projects within the script for the film, so we can. So it's much more they're much more based for an action sequence, which will come later on once they develop it. So. Sorry, I'm being really cryptic there.
No, I understand. I work in the film industry, so that's why I'm trying to ask cryptic questions because I know you can't say anything. But now that all the Harry Potter movies are done, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
So give us, because I know people always ask you about like the wands, how everybody wants to. The wands. So since we're here, I guess just talk about the wands.
Talk about wands, yeah.
I mean, just a little bit.
Yeah. No problem. The wands are. I get. It's probably the thing I get asked about most because it's such a characterful part of the series.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Along with other stuff, but an interesting thing about the wands really is not so much themselves, is the fact that they are absolutely bespoke to each character.
Yeah, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
And I sorry to cut you off, but I toured the studio. And like they have the whole display case of all the wands. I mean, each one's they're so beautifully intricate.
No, it's and they're a great, and it's not like we just sit down and we've got to make Dumbledore's wand. Right, I'll see you this afternoon, and we've made it.
Yeah.
It's there's an enormous amount of development, and it has to be presented to so many people. It has to go through a really formal process of design. The production designer Stuart Craig, really, in a more general sense of everything, really tries to make sure that everything that goes through his department, with part of his department, has gone through a proper consideration and a proper formal design process. So because the ones are character based and really what they want to do is reflect the tastes and the choices of each of those characters. There's a development, there's a discovery really of what that should be, and the debate back and forth for it.
Oh, and one of the things I think you have to take into consideration is that Harry Potter has such a huge fan base, so you can't just make a wand because people are gonna go, no, yeah. The audience knows. I'm sure you find the same thing when you do stuff like Star Wars and all the Wonder Woman, that there's those fans out there that know this stuff. forward and
Oh my
backwards.
God,
And it's
I mean, Star Wars, the ultimate.
Yeah, it's like
it's because also but with, I mean, funny enough with Star Wars, you what they're trying to do at the moment is really trying to stitch into a sort of world there, but then also move it forward.
Yeah.
So there's quite a volatile scenario with it, about and because at the end of the day, really, it's that each of the new ones have been very director driven,
Yeah.
and the opinion about what's important and what's not, and
course.
so that's been kind of interesting, because it's like Star Wars is like really it's like a period film, really,
In a
in
sense,
a
yeah.
way, in the way that you have to approach it and respect certain elements of it, but the tricksy thing is it's just not there's not a formal rule book to it. It's really is a point of opinion.
Oh, that's true. So besides the ones, what else did you do for Harry Potter? Like that was really fun or sort of challenging?
Oh yeah, I mean, God, it was 10 years' work, and there was the crew size averaged between 35 and 40 guys on each film, and we're there for 12 months on every film. So the volume of work that gets produced is enormous, and it goes from the really formal stuff, the high end front of camera stuff, to more mid-ground dressing. So if you're doing interiors of shops and all that kind of thing, right through to stunt work, to rubberized versions of stuff, to just general dressing pieces. That if you're funny with Fantastic Beasts, on the last one, was based in New York. I'd say 2/3 of the work required from us was just to help render New York in the 1930s, because it was all done, outside of London in a studio, in Leavesden Studios, all done on the backdrop and things. So there's very little you can actually purchase or hire. You have to fabricate that, and that was we had a big job.
Oh, yeah. No. So this is going to be a strange question, and you don't have to answer it. But so you've worked on all the movies, and you're familiar with the stories of the Harry Potter. Do you have a favorite? I think we all have a favorite.
A favorite story?
Yeah, particular.
Like one of the particular books.
Yeah.
It's always a difficult. I mean, Joe's such an incredible writer. You don't always get it in films. I mean, she's amazing at constructing the story, and obviously Potter is this incredible journey, and obviously with the books she produces so many layers, and even then there's so much in it she really didn't tell. She built this world much bigger and just opened up a bit to it. So,
which is great that we can have such things like fantastical beasts and everything, because there's like this world.
Well, the interesting thing about that is that there's a progression. She's obviously keeping the world going, but for her that was I think when she finished certainly when the film's finished, she didn't just want to go off and just carry on. She didn't. She needed a challenge. She needed and really she's challenged herself with the idea of, with Eddie's story with that Newt story, I beg your pardon, and that whole world, and it's a challenge to put it in a different period, actually. A really clever place, so clever the way she actually chose that time. I didn't realise till we really got into it how smart that is, because it's something we're familiar with, but it's a strange, very transitional time for in human history.
Well, my favorite one, I'm trying to remember which was my favorite book, but definitely my favorite movie was The Prisoner of Azkaban. I just liked, because the first two movies were so bright and colorful and beautiful, and then they had a different director for the third one.
Yes.
And he sort of
Alfonso,
made and he made it so much more dark.
Yeah,
and
he really boosted the franchise. Really, I think it really took it. And I think if he hadn't have done Prisoner, I don't think it. I'm not sure it would have had the strength right at the end. It allowed the future directors to really open up, and it's again, it was really so interesting because the books were so aimed at every year, and it was really written for that age group, and so they mature. It's just clever in that way as well.
No, I think the director was smart to like make each one. Like as the stories got as the kids got progressively older and the stories got progressively darker, the movies sort of followed suit.
Yeah, exactly. And Alfonso definitely brought in that complexity that probably wasn't there before, which wasn't needed for. I mean, I don't want to. I think Chamber actually. I think it's a great structured film. It's got pace. It's slightly underrated, and I think Chris Columbus had a phenomenal last challenge to get the whole thing going. I think he was the best choice definitely for it at the beginning.
I agree.
And Philosopher's Stone, but Philosopher's Stone was to make as a movie in a political sense, because no one wanted him to change anything, so he had to make the book. But you can't make just straight off the page a book like that into a film. You have to construct it. So he had a great challenge of really doing that. Plus, you were being introduced pretty much most of the film. You're just being introduced to people. Really, it's almost like a prequel, Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah, and I think the audience was so familiar with who these characters are, and this is the very first time we're going to see it on the screen.
Yeah.
So the audience comes with this huge. By the time we saw the second one, we were happy, so he was able to change it. But that first one is like, it's like you have to make the movie that people want.
Yeah, exactly, and I think he did a great job in that way, really.
No, I thought it was magical. I really thought it was good.
Yeah, no, exactly, and they're all good. I love Goblet of Fire is probably one of my favourite books, to be honest. It's just again, it's a great standalone. And it's a great idea to have this tournament and the challenges that come from it, and obviously this great transitional part. I think. And certainly on the prop making side, we had some great. We had that was one of our bigger films of the series. And we had a great fun. But
I feel like that was probably the start of like being the biggest films.
Yes.
I mean, you had the dragon fight. You had a lot going on in that movie.
Oh, it's tons. Yeah. And it's funny. I watched it last year again for the first time in God knows how long. Yeah. And you just forget how much you've done, how much is in it.
Yeah.
The tears, because it's not just about the tour, it's everything else, all the politicking is going before, all obviously the Voldemort storyline, and it's just rammed.
So briefly tell us how you got started, and then if you have any advice, because I always try to help like people that are starting out, because a little bit about myself, which my audience already knows, is that I kind of walked off my job to follow my dream, but I was a little bit older. I was 30.
Yeah.
And so whenever I interview people, I always want them to sort of give great advice for those that listen.
No, listen. I think that's always for yourself. That's always a brave decision. I mean, I have to say on what you're saying, it's I got to the age of 18, and I was...
Congratulations.
Sorry?
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, exactly.
That's a huge feat in itself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the first 18 years are great, and then it's just like it's all downhill.
It's all downhill. Yeah. I've done everything. I had to retire then.
Yeah.
I wish. But really wanting to stop, just to have a break from formal education. And because everything is so constructed at that point in your age where you have to make choices, you have to do this, you have to commit to careers and ideas of what you want to be and all that kind of thing. And there's a lot of pressure for that, and that's fine. There's a lot of people that are absolutely into that and have a very strong view. I was never one of those people, and so
that's good.
I felt very much like I had to throw my doors as open as possibly could and experience as much as I could, just to understand where my passions were, really. And I've always had them, but it was just like where to go. And so I when you said it, you'd sort of change your career. I can understand that happening. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more, because we do go down.
I'm setting out to change that.
Sorry?
I'm setting out to change that.
No. But you do the right thing, because you can't. You must respect yourself to understand that you've got to be happy in what you're doing. I've been very lucky. I've ended up doing something that I adore, and I'm surrounded by people that have the same attitude to that. And it's such an important part of life that you try and give you. It doesn't necessarily have to be work, but that you give yourself something that deeply satisfies you. And I think you've got to find that, really.
Well, that also includes, it's not necessarily a career, because sometimes you don't have the opportunity if you're raising kids or if you're married.
Life puts walls up everywhere.
Yeah.
It's no easy feat.
But I always think, even if you have a hobby or something you're very passionate about, I always think that you should find ways to do it, because it's not just about work. I mean, we have.
No, it's part of your character being a human being. To be honest, you have to understand that you cannot. and it's a modern dilemma that we all have to work hard and you provide and you just become a machine, really. And you're not a machine. Everybody has a creative aspect to them. Everybody has an element that needs to be satisfied in the sense of expression and
of course,
and contentment and enjoyment. You've got to be happy at some point in your life, even if you're singing in the car on the way home and it makes you happy. It's do you know what I mean? It's just like there has to be that you have to give yourself something like that.
I think that's important. I bet you're so you said you have daughters.
I have a daughter.
How excited was she about you working on Harry Potter?
Oh,
was she a fan?
Well, she was what? She was. To get the age right now, so she was 5. She was just about 4, just coming into just turned 5 when I started on the young. So grew up with that whole thing. But I think
so. Where most kids grew up with the book, she actually got to grow up with the actual movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's so fascinating.
Very occasionally to come on set and have a look around and things like that. So
and well, that's a good segue into. So I toured the studio, and it's because I live in Los Angeles and I've toured the sort of Harry Potter world, which is nice. It's like being in the world, but as a filmmaker and an artist, touring the actual stages, I mean, was by far the most magical thing. And I think it's interesting because I don't know what people expect when they go. Like they're like, oh, I'm gonna live in this Harry Potter world, but it's really. And one thing I love about it is, as much as we love these characters, it's really all about how they were created and the actual worlds, and you can touch the sets and tour them, and like that's the coolest thing. And then you see how like what you did with your prop making, and then you get to see some of the costumes, and like there's just a whole wall I remember displayed just for the hats. And then there was just a wall just for like wardrobe, and it's like it's the most beautiful thing.
It's a colossal compliment. It really, I mean, it's because it's the, and I use the word in a very positive way. It's the industrial part of what we do. It's how a film like that is constructed, and I don't think people don't realise that what the energy is, but I think there's a massive curiosity, the understanding of it, and of course the subject is there has a great romance to it, and the tour, the studio tour is so clever in the way that it takes you down those journeys. So it's not.
Well, and it ends with the big model. I'm sure I can say that because.
Yeah.
But I was going through it. I went by myself, and I was just in awe. And I walked around the corner, and I saw the huge model of Hogwarts that they use.
It's one of the best. It's so clever because you tour around and it's a journey through so much of all 10 films. But I think it's the absolute perfect way of ending.
Without a doubt.
Because not only is it's probably one of the best architectural models ever built for a film. And Jose and his team just did an incredible job of it. But it's also a piece of film history because the interesting thing about Potter was a 10-year for me was a 10-year period, and that model was made for the first film, and then it was renovated as the actual design of Hogwarts was changed, subtly changed every time. So it was re-edited. But by the time they got to, I think it was Half-Blood Prince, they really weren't using the model at all. They didn't need it. It was all going into the digital world, and it really was pretty much the last. It's not the last time. They still use models very occasionally now, but it was pretty much the last time a model like that was used from the very beginning. And so it's a massive piece of history, and it shows how things have changed and developed. But then also about how good stuff was before as well. It's not like everything was rubbish before and everything. The skill base was always there.
And it's cool because people realize it's not just a CGI.
No,
Hogwarts, like it was an actual model that they put against a green screen.
No, exactly, and you can't tell the difference between them both as well.
No, not at all. And then and I always thought that CGI should be used to enhance, not recreate.
The best. I mean, most visual effects supervisors will say that it is the most convincing visual effect is when you don't realise it's a visual effect.
Exactly.
And so you do. Because it's so powerful. It can be so powerful. it can make people lazy in their thinking, and then they rely on it too much. And never, the human eye, you know when you're getting hoodwinked.
Yeah,
I don't want to treat it as a negative. It's incredibly, there's some amazing films from it. But in a film such as Potter, it is about that blend, about the fact that you really don't see the holes.
Well, we're sadly running out of time. All good things have to come to an end. Yeah, it's already like about 24 minutes. And I just want, if there's anything else you want to say, or it's a true pleasure meeting you. You're a lot of fun.
And yourself, it's always a pleasure talking about certainly my experiences and certainly the work of many talented people. Really,
of course,
and being able to bring that to the fore. It's been an incredible experience so far. There'll be more to come.
Well, I hope so. I hope we hope we get to come to London again. I hope we get to have more tea / mimosas. Yeah.
It's got to be done. Hopefully it won't be snowing like it has been.
Well, it's just a little bit of snow, but hopefully I can fly out tomorrow.
Yeah.
But so you're amazing. I'm gonna shake your hand because I actually can. You're technically my first in studio guest. It's been an honor, and the London hospitality here has been amazing.
No, I'm glad you've had a good time.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening to Mimosas with Michael. You can find us on iTunes. Oh my gosh, we're everywhere. Stitcher Radio, Google Play, TuneIn. We're all over the dang place. You can always find us at mimosaswithmichael.com. Thank you very much.